artists. Today we are going to continue our cupcake drawing where we left off. So last time you were able to observe a few different cupcakes and decide which one you wanted to draw, and you each chose one to make your complete drawing of, and we started out with class that way last time. So now what I had warned you is next time we would be drawing it again, but we would be making it disappear. So as you can see in the picture on the left here, there is a cupcake that is whole, and then one that's had some bites taken out of it, another one that is even more eaten, and then one that is a picture that's just a wrapper. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we use guidelines in still life as we do this. In order to keep your cupcakes kind of uniform so that they look like they're the same thing moving forward, we're going to start with making a guideline of our cylinder. And the thing about guidelines is you want them to be really, really light, like barely touch the paper light. So I'm going to try to make it kind of in the same spot and the same size as my cupcake I drew whole. And I'm going to make that pancake that looks very similar to the one I did whole. I'm going to try to make the table legs match up, but you can see how light my pencil lines are compared to my finished drawing. So I'm getting kind of the same idea of how tall it is to make sure it's the same height, because I really want these to line up going across the page. Now, because this cupcake is actually getting eaten, as I draw it in, some of these lines are going to get erased away. But this kind of ghost cupcake wrapper, where it's the full cupcake wrapper, it'll help me put everything in the right place. So I've got this guideline to help me out. So now I want to look at the cupcake wrapper shape in the second picture here. And remember how it moves, and notice how it moves because it started to be opened to eat this cupcake. So I noticed that wrinkled line still is the edge, but it comes down and it gets stretched out, and then it kind of wraps back around. So we have this little edge here. And then this pops down, so it's open, and that's the open edge. So you can see this is the first step where I can erase that guideline because the table leg is now stretched out here, right? So then I want to kind of, again, moving along that idea of getting the main outlines first, and then we'll be moving into adding those details. I'm going to come in and say, okay, so there's a bite here, so I can see how the frosting would come down, and the bites would be right here. I add that bite in, and then I add the side of my cupcake where it's been bitten a little bit, right? And this has a little bit of a texture to it. We'll talk about that later. Remembering that this cupcake is a guide, so you can see the idea of them getting moved away, but you want to match the cupcake you drew. So my cupcake's frosting looks different than that. So I'm going to try to stick with, I'm going to try to alter this a little bit using my imagination. So this is where you have to look at your cupcake. Can use this paper in this structure to get the bites in, but then the details come back to my original. It's kind of a lot to remember, but the idea is that we can get the shapes from this generic example here, but we want to use the details from our original cupcake. So I'm going to skip dealing with the lemon right now, and I'll show you why in a minute. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say this side of the cupcake didn't get touched. So I'm going to do that line there, that is that between the wrapper and the frosting line. And then I'm going to start kind of getting these wrinkles that were I want them to kind of resemble what I had over here. So I'm using this as my example to kind of keep those going. That frosting should be a similar match to what I had there, but it's going to run into the edge of my cupcake. So I maybe didn't get a lot of the frosting in my first bite here. You can see. So the frosting is still mostly up here on top, just like it was. Just kind of fluffing it up there. So the frosting is still there, mostly the same as it was, just this bite out of the edge here. And then what I'm going to do is add my plate, try to keep that so it matches the other plate as well. Oh, I'm going to redo that. I don't like how fat it is. It needs to match this a little better. go a little skinnier around the front. So the plate is still there in that spot. And then because I would have taken the lemon off to eat the cupcake, what I'm going to do is just add that lemon slice kind of sitting back here. And again, because now it's laying flat, it's going to become an oval. Remember we talked about how when you lay that circle flat, it becomes an oval. So I'm going to make that lemon, or you might have had an Oreo on yours. If you had an Oreo on yours, you probably ate it. That was probably the first thing you ate. But mine, I had a lemon on, and I maybe wouldn't have eaten the lemon right away. So um, I've got that lemon sitting off to the side now, and I want to look before I add any more details, just if there's anywhere like I can see a little bit of a guideline here that came off. So I can erase those. But since they're so light, you even barely could tell once I got the rest of the drawing done. All right, so we're going to continue doing that. Same idea, move over to the next one. Make your ghost cylinder that kind of matches your first cupcake because that'll help you get your size. Right, so you get that first cupcake cylinder, repeat it over here, making sure the heights match and the ovals are about the same size. So we've got those matching pieces. And then once you have that, again, looking back at our example here to see how the wrapper would stretch and change as we go along. This is going to be a much more eaten cupcake now. So the wrinkles are getting more stretched out. And we're going to add in almost rounded there. And kind of starts to loosen up on the back side too, over on this side. And this time I've got a lot of my cupcake eaten. So I'm looking at this part is kind of here, and then there's just a rough line down. So I'm going to erase a lot of guidelines. So you can see there's a guideline here to erase. There's a guideline over here to erase. And that means that my cupcake wrapper actually has to come back in further. So I needed to add that in. And then another guideline right here. And this one stretched out a little bit too. So now I just need to add, that frosting is still there, but now it's pretty mushed. So I'm just going to have just a little bit of the frosting kind of mushed with a lot of it gone. So just a little tuft of frosting there, add this cupcake. All right, again, we get our plate underneath. And we don't want to forget anything, so we don't want that lemon to disappear. It's still sitting back there, but now we just see the corner of it sitting back there. That lemon stays as part of the picture, just sitting there on the edge, exactly where it was before. And now we're going to finish off with the finale, which is just that cupcake wrapper. So in this one, you can choose to make the ghost cylinder that's going to disappear, or you can just go straight ahead and add your just do your shape of your cupcake wrapper and really just follow the lines you see. See that cupcake wrapper kind of sitting there. That edge around the edge. And you see some little crumbs attached to it. Maybe a little bit of the crummy bottom down here on the bottom. So it becomes more of an abstract shape. And still sitting there on its plate. Lemon tucking out from behind, sitting off to the edge. And that's your finished drawing. So your drawing has the same details that you started with on your first cupcake. And I'm going to stretch this up and see if we can see all four of them at once. So the idea being, a little tricky here, that you start with that full cupcake, and then it kind of starts to go away, goes away a little more, and goes away all the way. So you just have a wrap.